Peace. This is Jamal Robinson with 720astrology.com. In this presentation, I want to discuss the topic of Kabbalah and astrology. Disclaimer before I begin, I do not pretend or claim to be a Kabbalistic expert. So, I am a person who is, we may say, multidisciplined, or a person who reads voraciously, who studies a plethora of things. And I like to give this quote to kind of give insight into who I am and how I function. And I got this quote from watching an old video from the 90s. There was this thing called Project Hindsight, and it involved an astrologer, a well-known, well-respected astrologer who is still actually alive, named Robert Hand. Okay. And he was involved with another guy, two other guys in this project. And I think the other guys were named Robert as well. But in this discussion where they're introducing this research that they're going to embark upon, he gives this quote. And I don't remember where he got this quote from, but I'm going to give credit to him because I got it from him. And the quote is a specialist. The quote is referring or defining a specialist. Quote, someone who learns more and more about less and less until finally he knows everything about nothing, end quote. When I heard that, I had to run that back about 3 times. I was probably washing dishes or something when that video was playing. I had to go stop, dry my hands, find me a piece of paper. I think I got an old envelope, and I wrote on the back of that thing, I got to write this down, because that's the quote I've been looking for 46 years. And it kind of summarizes my life. A specialist, quote, someone who learns more and more about less and less until finally he knows everything about nothing. I have struggled with pinning myself down to just one thing throughout my life. And we'll have another discussion about this, but my chart is kind of weird. There's something, and those of you who are more versed in astrology will know what I mean. There are patterns or planetary patterns that form in a chart. Now, this thing was, I think this whole concept was started by, was it Mark Edmund Jones, who was the first one to talk about planetary patterns. But I know let me pull it out. I'll give you some resources. This is an old book by Carl Jansky on planetary patterns. It's a good reference. You may be able to still find this on Amazon or somewhere, but Jansky was rather erudite. But my planetary pattern is called a splash. So I've got planets spread all over the chart. Okay. So one way this can play out is the splash person can tend to be, on one end, a jack of all trades, master of none. The splash may have trouble identifying one path to just follow. Now, what I've learned about having this type of chart is that I have to find a happy median between the the freedom seeking aspect of myself and the discipline requirements. And I've learned that if I can tie down one thing at a time and try to get some degree of mastery, that then once I get a certain degree of understanding and mastery, I can then move on to the next. And for me, what it does is it builds this collective of not. That's why I have so many books. These books are not astrology books. I got an astrology section. Like over here is astrology. Back there in the corner is astrology. Upstairs, I have a whole bookshelf designated for astrology. But I got history. I got stuff about neuroscience, chaos magic, so-called quantum physics, history, linguistics behind me. You see those green dictionaries and the brown ones. Those brown ones, I walked like 2 miles when I was in Phoenix, Arizona, working for a company. While everybody was trying to go and party, I found me a Goodwill, and those 3 brown tall dictionaries you may see right behind me. Those things are they're decent price. I got them for little or nothing at a Goodwill. Okay. So I want to know about everything. And in doing that, it helps me, from my opinion, just develop as a more well-rounded soul, a more well-rounded individual. And so when I found this quote from and heard this quote from Robert Hand, it really hit me because this is I have been working to be the antithesis of the specialist all my life. But at the same time, I'm always hunting for mastery. In other words, I think you can master more than one thing. And when you go back and look at a lot of some of our great authors that we get a lot of, like going back in the early 20th century, 19th century, a lot of these guys and women um, were not just one trick ponies. Some of your greatest astrologers, like I can't remember what Bernadette Brady, what her formal training, but a lot of these people, some of your our greater they're part of the older generation of astrologers. They have proficiency in other areas, and they got into astrology because they just had a mind that was curious, and they did not stop in whatever area they were classically or formally trained in. This quote that goes against our our current paradigm. Everything's about having a specialist. You go to your physician, the physician is going to hook up one of his homeboys or homegirls and send you out to this person because they specialize in this. And then that one's going to say, oh, but we found this. Let me send you to this specialist. And before you know it, you're taking 8 million different types of medications, and you're in worse shape than you were when you began this so-called journey. Holistically is the way we should approach everything, whether it's health, nutrition, total wellness, relationship dynamics, politics, finances. Everything should be looked at holistically, but our society breaks things down into compartments, because if you can compartmentalize so-called knowledge, then what you can do is keep people in a quagmire of never really knowing anything because they specialize in only this one thing. So I've gone on a tangent here. But I think it's partly necessary because this channel is fairly new. And as more people come and view my material and presentations or whatever, I just want to be clear about I'm not a one trick pony. I can't just do astrology. Just, well, the sun's in Scorpio and it is sesquiquadrant such and such, and the moon is. I can't just do astrology. I have to do this the way I do things. And I tend to look at things from the macrocosm down to the microcosm, as above, so below, as within, so without. So, without further ado, we'll move forward into our presentation or our discussion of Kabbalah and astrology. And of course, this is not an exhaustive discussion. I'm only going to single out one little tidbit or piece because this is too vast for it to be discussed in one setting. We're talking about a body of knowledge that is not fixed, but it is continually evolving and growing. All I'm going to do is give one perspective or a piece of a perspective, and I'm only going to deal with one Hebraic letter because as it Kabbalistically, which is the symbolic, mystical nature that is partly attached to the Hebrew lexicon. That's partly how Kabbalah functions. And I'm going to look at just one Hebrew letter that I feel supports, validates, and helps to explain the purpose of astrology. All right. So let's go to the whiteboard. Okay. So I said we're going to focus on one primarily, but we're also going to incorporate some other Hebrew letters. But we're going to start primarily with the Hebrew letter Qoph. And it's kind of like this. It's kind of that upper line is a little kind of thick. That's a Qoph. And it has a long leg that comes down. Now, Qoph has the numeric value of 100. Now, before we continue, here's something we need to be clear about with the Hebrew letters and why they are so important to even approach. Like I said, I'm nowhere close to any degree of mastery. I am approaching. And this is just a sharing of things I've come across as I am approaching this. Take a very humble approach to this because the body of knowledge is too vast to be arrogant. Every Hebrew letter is a symbolic encasement because every Hebrew letter has multi-layered meaning, but beyond that, every letter is actually formed by a series of other letters. So every letter in Hebrew is its own world, which is made up by other worlds. And each of those parts, those worlds, are then made up of other worlds. So it's an infinite combination or overlapping of worlds. See, Hebrew can teach us a lot about even the reality we're in. Just by studying it, that our reality is a series of other realities overlapping. Okay. So the Qoph, which equals 100. Okay. We're going to come back to this several times, this 100, because there are several things we can illuminate based on its value of 100. Okay. So What's unique about the Qoph is that in Hebrew, there are the first 22 letters. That's the main um, alphabet. That's where we get the word our alphabet comes from aleph bet. Aleph is the first Hebrew letter, bet is the second one. Aleph bet is where we get the alphabet. So the primary alphabet is consists of 22 letters. Qoph is the only one of those primary 22 that has a leg that goes down beneath um, the line or the imaginary line. You know, when you were first learning how to do your handwriting, you would learn that you have this line here and B and C and then when we get to a J, what was unique, the J would go beneath the line and the G would go and the P and the Q would go. Okay. So if we imagine that we have a similar line as it refers to Hebrew, then Qoph is unique because it's the only letter um, whose leg goes beneath that line. Now, just for clarification, there are what you call finals in Hebrew, final letters, final Qoph, final mem, final nun, final tizadi, final, I can't think of final pe. It's like 5 or 6. Now those, because they're finals, they're going to have longer legs. Qoph is the only one though with a long leg that is a part of the primary 22, as in it's not a final. It's the only letter that's not a final that has a long leg like this. And what I've learned about studying this is you don't discount anything. This system is loaded with symbolism. Okay. And I'm going to give you some references here, some things that I kind of keep close to the vest, but I'm going to share some sources here today. So you can do your own due diligence and study. So this leg of Qoph, because it goes down like this, we can imagine that this leg is boring a hole. Okay. It is boring a hole. So I'm drawing an imaginary hole that leg is now digging down through. Okay. Now let's keep using our right brain here. Okay. Using our left brain and right brain, but we don't want to get just left. So we're going to bring some imaginative, creative thinking. So a hole, okay? A hole, if we bring it to our reality and to our physicality and our reality, physicality and reality, then we can say that the P or the Qoph in drilling down and creating this hole, we could associate this with either creation, which would be through a womb, or through destruction. Or a better word is completion. Creation, completion. Okay. Now, from a mystical and metaphysical standpoint, this is also highlighting or demonstrating the acronym of GOD. G, generator. O, operator. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Okay. D, destroyer. Okay. God, because we have the involvement through the womb, and in between the involvement and the completion, which is the tomb, we have participation. So the womb or creation is G for generator. The participation is the operating part. The completion, the tomb, is the destroyer. We even had that played out in Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay. Now, when we take, and I just encourage everyone if to go back and first take your time watching this. Get somewhere where you can be still and go back over this again if something doesn't make sense at first. Okay. Because we're going to go and we're going to take a lot of scholastic liberty here, a lot of creative approach and thinking here. Okay. Like I said, every letter in Hebrew is actually a word. It takes a word to spell out a letter. So when we take the letter Qoph, the word that it takes to spell that out will always start with the letter that it represents. So because we're spelling out the letter Qoph, it will start with a Qoph. Oh, let me get my pen going. Okay. It'll start with a Qoph. All right. But that's not all we hear in that word, Qoph. Okay. So it's going to have a va in there, and it's also going to have a final pay. Now, if you're wondering why this last letter has this long leg, after I just said that the Qoph is the only one that has it's because this is a final pay. Okay. And just a other side note, Hebrew is written from right to left. We write our English script from left to right. So you got to look at this opposite of what we are accustomed to. So the word begins from the right, which is the Qoph, then the va, and then the pay. So the pay has the long leg. The pay is this one right here. It has the long leg because it's the final letter of the word. So these three letters actually spell out this letter, which is Qoph. This is the spelled out representation right here. A Qoph, a va, and a pay. Now, each letter has a numeric value. So the Qoph, let's erase some of this so we don't have a bunch of confusion. The Qoph has I erased all my stuff. The Qoph has a value of 100. The va has 6. And the pay has a value of 80. So together, when you spell out the letter Qoph, you get the numeric value of 186. Okay. And so because it has that value, we then look for cognates. Cognates would mean what are other words that have the same letter structure, uses the same letters. And we can also, another sidebar, to get deeper understanding of the Qoph, we can find other words that have the same numeric value of 186, because that means they are vibrating on a spectrum, on the same spectrum. And that spectrum can be all the way over here, that is so-called positive, and it can be the opposite or the antithesis of that spectrum, which is the negative, and they both can be vibrating at 186, which here's another thing Hebrew reveals, that we live in a world of duality, polarity. Okay. Now, but one of the cognates of Qoph, meaning it has the same letters, one of the cognates, which is going to be basically the same thing, except it's not referring to the letter, it's actually referring to a word. This means either the eye of the needle, trying to write fast, or it can represent the whole of an axe blade. Okay. Now let me just stop here and give reference so you don't think I just magically came up with this stuff on my own. I'm going to give a reference here. I pulled that from this book, The Inner Meaning of the Hebrew Letters. This is I want to say this book is priceless. Little pricey, but it is well worth the investment if you are really looking to broaden your knowledge and not just get the surface stuff that you can find anywhere. So I got these meanings from this book. Now we can deduce the eye of a needle. Now, what do we pass through a needle? Thread. Okay. Then you have the whole of an axe blade. Okay. What do we use the axe blade for? To break things up. It's destructive. If you go back to just a moment ago, I was talking about God, generator, operator, destroyer. Okay. And I was talking about the fact that the Qoph has this unique leg that drills down and creates a hole, and that hole can be a womb or tomb. Well, when we go and take the cognate of the letter Qoph when spelled out, this is Qoph. A cognate, which means a word that uses the same letter structure, terminates in the meaning of eye of a needle or hole of an axe blade. So if we pass thread through the eye of a needle, a thread is used to mend things or to bring things together. An axe is used to separate things. Okay. So we now see some type of cycle. All these different little representations and symbolic references have ultimately been pointing to something cyclic. Even the reference to literally drilling a hole is a circle. The eye of the needle, a circle. The hole, so the axe blade can fit in, it's a circle. So we have the literal reference to circles, and symbolically we have something that is pointing to a circle. Okay. Let me erase some of this. Make sure that I'm staying on my notes. Now, let's look at the definition. Let's be clear about what we've already established. We've established some type of references to circles. Okay. All right. Now, what do I need? Let's get my pen back. Okay. Now, in addition to each letter having numeric value, each letter has a symbolic meaning. Okay. Now, the Qoph as a single letter, and meaning we're not applying the its actual full spelling, just if we take the letter by itself. One of the meanings of Qoph is growth and holiness. Okay. Now, one thing, if we pay close enough attention to nature, see, as erudite as we can try to be, nature simplifies everything. And in our studies, if our studies are true enough, what we end up doing is finding, by going all the way around Robin Hood's barnyard, that's old country saying, we end up discovering that nature just simply presented the same truth we were hunting for. It already put it right in front of us. And one of these truths that I'm getting at is that growth is cyclical. And I'm big on synchronicity. So last night, my 5-year-old is reading one of her little books on her tablet from school. And she said, "Daddy, I really love this one right here." And this particular book is talking about the growth cycle of an apple. And she said, "Daddy, it's all a big circle because the seed is planted, it sprouts roots. Okay. We then have a piece of fruit. We pick the fruit, we eat it, we discard the seeds, and then the seeds go back into the ground. And so the book literally said that it's a cycle, the cycle of growth. Nature has already presented the basic outline of how things grow. They grow in circles. So as the Qoph is referred to its meaning, one of its meanings is growth, it refers to a circle. The word holiness literally means circle, because from the same root family of holiness, we get whole. We get holy. And we get whole as in WHOLE. So a whole as in a circle where there's some type of space created for something to inhabit or to move through, HOLE. Holy, which means something has been made sacred, and that holy ties into whole, WHOLE, which means complete. Complete, as in a full circle. And a full circle is 100%. Remember, everything symbolically ties into each other. And when we start studying these letters, okay, and we remember Qoph equals 100. Qoph is also associated with growth and holiness. All right. So let's keep going down this symbolic rabbit hole that we have embarked or dove into. Okay. Now, because Qoph equals 100, it is also equivalent to the letter Kaf. Okay. And now Kaf by itself has a numeric value of 20. All right. Now, but let's look at what Qoph means. It's got a few meanings. It has the meaning of crowning achievement. Now watch how the symbolism continues to show itself. What is a crown? It's something that is circular. Okay, that's my little makeshift crown. All right, a crown, crowning achievement. It is also refers to the grasping hand. Okay. Okay, grasping hand, which would be this. Now watch my hand as it closes. For my hand to close, I have to bend the phalanges, the fingers. They naturally form what? A circle. Here's a candle. When I hold this, look at that. For me to grasp it, look, I'm in a circle because I have to bend my hands in a circular fashion to grasp. And that's what the Qoph is. It's a reference to the hand, but it's the hand that is grasping. Again, a circle. All right. So that's the Qoph, but look at this. Look at this. I don't know why it's erasing two things at once, but that's all right. I can write it again. It's all right. We're looking at the Qoph again. Remember, the Qoph equals 20. But if I take the Qoph and spell it out, again, it's going to start with the letter that it is trying to describe or spell out, which is the Qoph, but it ends with a f sound, and that is the pay. Okay. Pay final. And so the pay final has a value of 80, remember? And the Qoph has a value of 20. So when we put them together, we again have 100. So now we see a correlation between the Qoph and the Qoph. And we've already symbolically attached a cyclical nature to the Qoph, that growth is cyclical, holiness is cyclical, and that the Qoph, which means crowning achievement, it would only make sense that when we spell it out, it equals 100. Circles, circles, and circles. Now, one thing we also want to pay attention to is this, that when we are finding these things adding up to 100, that what we really have is a 1. And we're talking about this basic, simple numerology here, that everything reduces down to a single digit. So let's highlight this and make this clear. The first letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the Aleph, which has a numeric value of 1. Okay. So I'm not going to write all this, but I'm going to tell it. One way to look at the Aleph is that it is the power of the hidden power of the source is now coming forth. It is God power. If we want to use that word, God power is now issuing forth and coming into the realm of existence. Okay. When we multiply that power by 10, we have a yod, and the yod equals 10, and the yod is the hand. The hand. And look, we got 10 fingers, phalanges, okay, representing the hand, but it's more so the hands open. Okay. Now, what's interesting, here's one connection between the Hebrews and astrology, because the yod is with the hands open also represents spirit moving, which is breath. In astrology, Gemini, which is an air sign, breath, is associated with the lungs because these are the internal processors of breath. They grab the air. And we have the shoulders and the hands, which are going out to grasp. So we see this correlation between the yod in Hebrew, associated with spirit, which is breath, and the hands, and the fact that in astrology we have Gemini, which is an air sign, breath, and it rules over the hands. If we multiply the power of spirit by 10 again, we then have a Qoph. Growth and holiness. And we have just found that the Qoph is actually symbolically synonymous with the calf. And the calf is the grasping hands or the crowning achievement. And now I'm starting to work my way towards the astrology. We have the initiation of energy, Aleph. So imagine we got this circle. And in these little space here is where energy is coming to be involved. Okay. So this is the involvement. Okay. Down here is matter. We're going into matter to be involved in that world. As we are involved, we have spirit moving through this experience in matter. And if we utilize it properly, then we can have or reach the crowning achievement. The upside of the arrow is evolution. The downside is involution. We become involved to evolve. And our final destination is to revolve or revolution, to complete the circle. And the completion of the circle is the Qoph, which is growth or holiness. Or in terms of the calf, when we spell it out, the crowning achievement. Okay. Now, Kabbalistically, do I want to erase all this? Yes. Okay. Kabbalistically, and I'm going to try to draw this. Let me get my tree out. I always mess up the 4th, 5th, and 6th Sephiroth. So let's do this. No, that's wrong. I don't want that. Get that out of here. I want that. Bam. Okay. Let me get here's a nice little handy learning tool to keep. You can get this off of Amazon. Just look up Kabbalah tree of life. Okay, so we've got the crown, and then we have that is Hokmah, This is Binah. And here is Hesed. This is Gabora. This is Tiferet. This is where I normally mess it up. Excuse me. A lot of times I put Tiferet too high. So, no, okay, here we go. I got it. Bam, 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 bam. Okay, and then we have Netzik, Ode, Yesod, Malkuth. Okay. These are the 10 Sephiroth of the front side of the tree. That's what I deal with, the front side of the tree. Now, if you're wondering, now what in the world is this? If you've never seen this, here's a simplistic way to look at it. This is right now in your home, you're consuming electricity. That electricity is coming in from a municipality or whoever's the energy provider, and it's brought in from these huge stations that mega wattage coming out. Who knows how many thousands of watts coming out of these substations. If all of that energy were to pour into your house, your the electric grid in your house would be fried. So you have transmitters who step down the energy, step it down, so it can at least go to your power box or your fuse box in your house. And that still has a lot of high voltage running through it, but it is still stepped down. You step it down even more by having an outlet. And now it has been stepped down so far that you can plug in basic electronics, appliances, and so forth, and then not blow them into smithereens, because the energy has been stepped down so it can be utilized within the simplistic realm of your home. Okay. The tree of life is stepping down, if we will, God force. And the first point of concentrated energy that none of us could contain is at the very top, which is called Kether. Now I'm going to spell it out the normal way. Kether, okay? Kether. All right, it goes to this Sephirah right here, Kether. Now in Hebrew, Kether would be a Kaf, a Ta, and a Resh. Very simple. So this is 20. This is 400. And this is 200. So altogether, they equal 620. Okay. Now, the middle path in Hebrew is right down here. That's the middle path. And there are 4 Sephiroth that occupy the middle path. And they are Kether, they are Tifereth. Our next is Tifereth. Ah, okay, there we go. Give me some more room. Tifereth, which is the sun. Then we have Yesod, which is the moon. And finally, Malkuth, which is earth, also referred to as the kingdom. Okay. Now, here's what's significant. There are Hebrew letters that apply to each Sephiroth or Sephira, and they spell out the ineffable name of the divine, which is Yod Hey Va Hey. Okay. Now, this ineffable name has a value. The Yod or Yod is 10. The Hey or He or Ha, the Ha is 5. The Va is 6. And the Ha is 5. They equal 26. Once you look at this, this is a code. If you reduce this down, take the 0 off, you have a 62. So the crown is 62, but the unfolding of the crown is 26. So here's the way my mind sees it. The crown is the energy that comes in, and that energy unfolds itself, which is why the number is reversed, and it is 26 as it unfolds itself coming down into Malkuth. Okay. Now, let me give you some coinky dinks, if you want to call these coincidences. It just so happens that the human brain does not physically mature until 26. Now, the brain is associated with the cranium. Listen to the word cranium. Cranium is the crown. So there are some geniuses behind the construction of this system that we're looking at here, because it coincides with phenomena that are occurring in human development. The maturity, a certain level of maturity is not reached until 26, because the brain has not gone to certain degrees of development. It's also interesting that while 26, as in the age, coincides with the crown up here, that it just so happens that at the bottom, that our feet have 26 bones in them. So there's 26 up here in some form or fashion, and there's 26, a reference to 26 down here at the very bottom. As above, so below. Okay. Now, if you're still wondering, what does this have to do with astrology? So I want to read some of my notes of some things I wrote. Okay. Astrology provides a way to climb Jacob's ladder. That's a biblical, that's a Torah reference or a Old Testament reference. Jacob's ladder. Jacob is the father of Israel. Astrology, and what I mean by that is that if the crown, which has a value of 620, and reduce it to 62, as it unfolds itself, because we can't consume or come in contact with this power unless it has been stepped down. As it steps itself down, it is reversing its energy, which means it's the same energy, but it was unfolding itself down to Malkuth. That then astrology can show us a way to enfold what has been unfolded. So we are in a declination, our existence. And through studying cycles and how I appear and show up in cycles and manage cycles. I can go through the steps of enfolding what has been unfolded. All right. How does astrology do this? It can do this by providing guidance as we move around the circle of life. See, even when we look at I don't want to show anybody's chart, but I don't have a. Hey, here's a chart for Matthew Perry. He's a public figure. You can get this, but just look at when we look at the chart, what are we looking at? A circle. We're looking at a circle. And that's how we are interpreting the chart, by moving around a circle. Now, the guidance that astrology provides or can provide supports our growth, our holiness, and evolution. Go back to where we started. We started this conversation by considering the Qoph. And the Qoph equals 100. And the Qoph means growth and holiness, which are cyclical. Astrology also reminds us that time moves in cycles. It moves in circles. When you start studying astrology long and with just a little bit of time and paying attention, you realize that you're studying the nature of cycles. So if I'm studying cycles, it means astrology provides a way to go against this left brain lockdown that we live within. See, for us, time is moving, and now in the 21st century is digitized. We're not even moving on the wall clock in the circle. We're moving digitally, meaning it's just whatever's the next tick on that watch, the next tick on that phone. It's just a digit, the next digit, the next digit. So it puts us on the line. Our whole life is linear. Rush over here, rush over there, get this done, get that, I'm just a cog in the wheel. Astrology is actually quietly rebellious, because it gives us a reminder, or it reminds us that time really is not linear, it's cyclical. Just think, in our linear approach to life, we are still using calendars. And let's be clear about that word calendar, that it comes from the root kalis. And the word kali, or the root kali, refers to basically entities that live within the menstrual fluid of the feminine. And that these entities actually govern time through cyclical experience. The woman is the master timekeeper, because if there is no clock, her menstrual cycle gives indication of the time, because it gives indication of the cyclical nature of the moon. So even time itself is actually feminine. It's a right brain expression, and the right brain is circular. When we look at it this way, we also see that astrology gives us clues into how to interpret or understand what people say the chakras, or your Hindustani people would say the chakras, but I'm going to just say chakras because it's easier for me. Typically, when we see pictures of the chakras, what do we get? We get circles that are facing us. But we also learn that there's a snake, that an imaginary if you will, snake that moves up as this energy moves up. It's called the Kundalini snake or the Naga serpent. It winds its way up and around the spine, which is where our medical symbol, the caduce, comes from. But I would submit, based on and building on our discussion we've had here, that the chakras would be better to be represented like this. Because this more feminine understanding of time does is it shows us that this is how we're really moving. As we elevate in so-called consciousness, that's how it happens. This is how we climb Jacob's ladder, cyclically, by understanding where we are in the cycles, and by having understanding and then application of the understanding, it then gives us better opportunity to move vertically, but not vertically in a straight line, but vertically through a series of cycles until we can spiral out and break the wheel of samsara, or the wheel of reincarnation, through working our way out through evolution. And so astrology, as we connect it to Kabbalah through just the Hebrew letter Qoph, is giving us an opportunity to develop, to mature, to grow through recognition of the cycles of life that we're moving through. It gives us an opportunity to actually elevate. And if we ignore, then we can also cycle down. Or we can just keep spiraling around in the same cycle. But I see one of the beauties of astrology is it gives us an opportunity to make a choice. That's where free will and fate dance together. Fate would have it that certain situations would be presented for us. Our will would be, how do we learn from them, evolve, and grow? And our willingness to use our will correctly, if you will. Oh, that's a triple entendre. Then can give us keys to the kingdom. Well, I think that covers everything I want to talk about. And I know this has been, I don't know how long this discussion has been, but I hope it is edifying and that it helps you continue to grow on your journey in some form or fashion. As always, I'm available for private readings and consultations through my website, 720astrology.com. Know the stars to know yourself. Peace.